Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Ishan and you are watching Programming with Ishan. Today in this chapter we are going to discuss this interesting concept of lifecycle hooks, and to make you guys understand this better I have divided this concept in two parts. The first one will be dealing mostly with the conceptual understanding of the lifecycle hooks, especially including what exactly these hooks are, why are they important, how many of them are available, and how you can categorize them into different groups. Also, we will be discussing a real world analogy so that you can grasp the concepts better. And in the second part of this chapter, we are going to discuss the practical implications of these lifecycle hooks. So without any further ado, let's get started. To understand what exactly lifecycle hooks are, it is important for you to know that Angular components go through a series of stages from creation to destruction, and lifecycle hooks are the methods that allow you to tap into these specific stages and add custom behavior to it. For example, initialization, change detection, etc. And when I say tapping into a specific stage of components lifecycle, I mean gaining control over the stages of component lifecycle and adding your own code to perform a specific task on a certain key moment. And that's what lifecycle hooks are. And now why they are important? They are important because they are really crucial for managing the component's behavior. As we already discussed, they allow you to write the code on a specific stage of a component's lifecycle. So it provides you a cleaner code, an optimized code, and it allows you an easy initialization of a certain functionality, code cleanups, as well as triggering side effects and APIs. So that's what they are important for, and the best thing about them is they give you full access to the components lifecycle, so you can write the code and execute it at the exact time wherever you want. So that's all about the importance and the definition of your lifecycle hook. So we have in total 8 lifecycle hook methods available, and let's discuss each one of them starting from ng-on-init. So ng-on-init is that stage of the component's lifecycle which gets called only once at the time of component's initialization. They are typically used for the purpose of setting up initial values and configurations. Then comes the ng-on-changes. So ng-on-changes gets called whenever there is an input property change, and input property you can consider as the @input property which we utilized in our component interaction chapter. So that's the one. And then we have ng-do-check. This hook runs every time a change detection cycle occurs, and when I say change detection cycle, it is a process where Angular checks for any kind of change in the component state or any data of the component, and updates the DOM accordingly based on the change what has happened. So this whole process of checking and updating the DOM is called as a change detection cycle, and for every change detection cycle ng-do-check runs. So you can utilize that to write your own custom change detection logic. Then comes ng after content init, and similar to this we also have ng after content checked. These two lifecycle hook methods are responsible for the content projection working. So when I say content projection, it basically means a mechanism which allows you to insert or project a content, let it be an HTML element or another component, into a different components template which is coming from outside. So it just helps you to inject a content coming from outside into your current components template. So this whole mechanism is called as content projection, and ng after content init is a hook which gets called just after a content projection occurs. Like it only gets called once after the content projection has happened, and to actually project the content into your current template you will have to use ng-content tag. So that is the tag which you utilize for the purpose of projection. Then we have the other method which is ng after content checked. So similar to how ng-do-check runs after every change detection cycle, ng after content checked also runs after every change detection cycle, wherein the change which is getting checked by the Angular here is related to the projected content. So whatever content was projected, if any kind of change is occurring in that specific part, so that's what it keeps on checking at every change detection cycle. Then we have ng after view init. Ng after view init gets called only once after the components view and child gets initialized, generally used for accessing view elements. And ng after view checked also runs every time whenever a change detection cycle occurs, but here the checks what is happening is related to the components view and the child views. And finally we have ng on destroy. Ng on destroy is called just before the component is destroyed, and it is used for the purpose of cleanup. For example, if you are willing to unsubscribe from an observable used in your Angular component, so that is what it is used for. So this is all about your lifecycle hooks methods. And now to understand and remember them better, let's categorize them into different groups based on the work they are responsible for. Now let's quickly divide all the lifecycle hooks we studied just now into separate categories so that you can remember their name as well as the purpose of these lifecycle hooks in an easy manner. So let's say we have 5 categories, and the names would be like setup/initialization as the first one, change detection the second one, content projection the third one, and the fourth one would be view initialization, the fifth one would be the cleanup, the final one. Yeah. Now to assign the lifecycle hooks to these categories, so setup and initialization can have ng on init and ng on changes, because these two lifecycle hooks are responsible for the setup of initial data and configuration, as well as the changes in the input properties also gets reflected here. And then comes the change detection, so ng do check, which runs on every change detection cycle, and then ng on changes can also be put in this category, because on the detection of a change in an input property, ng on changes gets fired, right? Then comes the content projection. So we already have discussed this in detail, that ng after content init and ng after content checked can be part of this category. Then the view initialization, then ng after view init and ng after view checked can be the part of this category. And finally the cleanup category will have the ng on destroy, which is responsible for the cleanup purposes. So this is how we can categorize our hooks into 5 different categories, and use this to remember the purpose of these lifecycle hooks as well as the names of the lifecycle hooks also. So let's quickly try to understand the sequence in which the lifecycle hooks occur in a component. And to do that, let's have an example of a kitchen in a restaurant. Consider there is a chef who is ready for doing the setup of the kitchen before preparing the dish. Now, before setting up the kitchen, the chef receives a request from the owner of the restaurant. The owner has asked to add a new menu item and also has provided a new ingredient to use. Now, as the chef is receiving some request from the owner, so we can say that chef is having an input property which is getting updated, and whenever an input property gets updated or changed, then ng on changes gets fired, right? So the first lifecycle hook that gets fired here is ng on changes. And once the menu item and the ingredient has been received, the chef goes ahead and sets up the kitchen. So that is something which resembles your ng on init, where we are doing the initial configuration and setup. And then finally the cooking starts, wherein the chef continuously tastes the dish and then adjusts it based on the tastes of that specific dish. So this resembles your ng do check, wherein we continuously check the change and update the DOM, right? Now this is the sequence of your ng on changes, ng on init and ng do check. But there is a small catch here. If there is no input property involved in the ng on changes stage, I mean if there is a component which is having no input properties involved, in that case ng on init will be the first lifecycle hook that gets fired or called, right? So this is all about these 3. Then comes the content projection part, wherein we have ng after content init and ng after content checked. So consider there is a chef who is already trying to prepare a food item, and a customer comes to that chef and asks to add a certain ingredient in the food which is getting prepared. Okay, now this is like kind of injecting a certain content to a template of a component, right? So the chef takes that ingredient and put it into the dish which is getting prepared. So once the projection has been done, then ng after content in it gets called, and after this the change detection cycle keeps on checking for any kind of change in the projected content, and the final plating of the dish which was prepared resembles the ng after content checked, because the chef is checking for any kind of change in the final projected content, right? So after this the food goes to the counter wherein the waiter receives it. So once the waiter receives the food, that means the view has been initialized and now it will be given to the user, in this case the customer. So before serving it to the customer, the final inspection happens, and these two scenarios resemble ng after view init and ng after view changes, ng after view checked, right? And the final one is the cleanup activity that we already know resembles the ng on destroy. So this is the whole scenario and the reference of a lifecycle hook to this kitchen example. And I believe this was helpful enough for you to understand the sequence as well. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. If you really enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe our channel and join this amazing community for getting more exciting updates. Also, we have launched this new group, that is Stack Master Full Stack Dev, on LinkedIn. So you can connect with us there as well. You can connect with other people there and get latest information on full stack development. For more information, you can check the description below. See you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.